All right, welcome everyone. This is a Viper Professional Training and Sport webinar. Today's date is March 25th, 2019. This is a Monday night webinar, and the title of tonight's webinar is How to Interpret Lightning 1 through 4. And as everyone knows has been to our webinars or our live trading room, everything that we say and do at Viper Trading Systems is for educational purposes only. Futures trading, forex trading, any kind of financial instruments trading involves risk. Therefore, there's always risk of loss. You should only trade discretionary capital, and that is money that you can afford to lose. Nothing said in this webinar, other webinars we have, our live trading room, or anything else with Viper Trading Systems should never be construed as trading or investment advice. And as always, everyone does trade at their own sole discretion. Any questions on the disclaimer? If not, we are going to get started here. All right. By the way, just a real quick heads up too, be sure and diagnose your chart, like first thing in the morning, because, we've already been in that room for 30 minutes, when that market opens. So, like just to give an example, the phantom trade on ES this morning that was just through the roof was a killer trade. Anyway, enough said on that, because, the whole thing is you've just got to diagnose your charts and everything. And, as you can clearly tell, I diagnose these charts. Okay. Now, what we're looking at right here, I want to go over something with everybody. Okay. If you were looking at this chart, yeah, it's down right now, right? But what would it take to actually change this to the up position? Anybody? What would it take to change it to the up position? By the way, I'm watching a little trade I've got on crude oil. So I've got my stop in. I couldn't resist it. Yeah, well, basically, if this was going to head down, okay, you would expect it to take out 33, right? And if you already missed this up here on a rollover, then, you're really waiting for whatever trade sets up. So the way I personally like to draw my charts is like this. I've got lines on my chart every single day. Now, if they were to break this 33, come back and kiss anywhere in this area here, I'd box it and short it. If they broke this area here, this is what that new indicator is going to be letting you know. If they do a low lightning 3, a high lightning 3, and a lower lightning or a higher lightning 3 on the higher low, then it's going to warn you of a potential trend change. Okay, see how you had a low here, but it's higher than here? Okay, so when this breaks this right here, this is pretty much heading up. Okay, now that's something you got to really train your eye to see, because, these 15 swing strength, this lightning 3 is really good at showing you this type of thing. Okay, and we're going to look at the actual chart in just a second. But what I want to go over first, and this may be a little bit repetitive to some of you, but bear with us just a moment, because I want everybody to, that's, come in new and things like that, obviously, to know what we're doing. Okay. So what I'm going to do right now is I'm going to show this little lightning chart. Okay. Now you're seeing this lightning chart, and basically what I've done is I've drawn lightning 2, lightning 1, and lightning 3 on the chart. Okay, and I tried to do it as well as it is actually done, on the thrust, the retrace, thrust, and everything, so that a person can tell what's going on. Okay, like lightning 2, for instance, you have a low here, you have a high. You don't know that's your higher low until it takes out that swing. It's really that simple. Okay, you don't know if this is your new low swing until it takes out this swing to the left for sure, and even this swing to the left also. Okay, that's when you know that's a higher low. Okay, see how this is a low and this is actually a little higher low right here? Okay, so when do you know this is a low? When it takes this out right here. Okay, now that's like lightning 2 right there, and it's the same thing on lightning 1, but we're not going to go over lightning 1 as much because it's actually a little bit slower. Wow, that's a $300 trade on that oil. But see, on this lightning 3 right here, you have a low, you have a high. You don't know this is your higher low until it takes out this swing. So if you were looking for a trade in here, for instance, wouldn't you be looking for something in the neighborhood of, on a pullback, like right across there? That's basically, now, granted, you're going to actually a lot of times not get quite back to here, or you may even get a little bit lower than here. Okay. But this is a little sweet spot for you to look for a trade, when they come back and test these areas. Okay. And you're going to find that with Lightning 3, and we're going to talk about all 4 lightnings tonight, because lightning is really a good tool to use on your charts. Does everybody know how to get lightning on your charts, for one thing? Yeah, also trend lines. Absolutely, Raymond, on your question there. Absolutely, when they break those trend lines too. Like to give an example, like right here. When it broke this trend line, like right through there, that was definitely an up move, wasn't it? And that's Lightning 1 there. And of course, this is actually about the same thing right through here, more than likely, drawing at something like that, imagine. Basically, you're just drawing with the pricing, or you're looking for a little breakout trade, either way. Let's see. So, no, your trade right now on CL. Yeah, the trade on CL is right at a top. 19 is what it took out. It's trying to go up to 35, if anybody's actually watching CL at the moment. Okay. All right. Does anybody have any questions on how to tell when lightning is identified? Because you have 3 lightnings on your chart for the most part. You have Lightning 1, you have Lightning 2, and you have Lightning 3. Lightning 3 is the most important to be able to see when a trend changes, because they'll change early for you, and the backgrounds and everything won't change before you'll get a good trade. Okay, so let's go ahead and look at, bear with me one second. Let's look at the chart here again. Okay, now does everybody see this right here? For instance, when this pulled down and you box in, to give an example, see this is actually like a little bit of an uptrend now, isn't it? Okay, but what you've got to do is you've got to catch it on these rebounds and box in like like around mid-band, to give an example, a preponderance of, candles, like 2 candles tall. Is there generally a minimum tick or point count to determine how far, let's see just a second, how far apart Lightning 3 pivot points are? There's really not, Cross, because what the deal is on Lightning 3 is just simply, it is looking at these charts that are 4 range. Okay, now here's the actual chart right here. And I think somebody can clearly see that this is more than likely an uptrend now, right? But we diagnosed it with lightning. Okay, notice how I talked about drawing like your trend line. See this? Thrust, retrace, thrust. Could you draw a trend line across here like so and take that trade, knowing that it was starting to stair step up? Yes. Okay, you could definitely do that. And a lot of our people do just this with Object Trader. Okay, now where would this more than likely, the way it's headed right now, what would you do if you were diagnosing your chart to take the next trade? Anybody? What would you do? Afraid I'm going to have to take this trade off the table if it's a little over 3 something. Anybody watching crude oil? If you are in crude oil, you'd probably want to protect some coin up there at 35, and even a little bit under 35 if you get up there. Okay. I don't know if anybody took that or not, but it is actually a decent little trade. It's well over $300. Okay. I'll show how you'd get that trade later, but this is actually a replay chart, so you're not going to be able to see it on this one. But let's just diagnose this chart. We know for a fact that it can't take out this swing if we're going to head up, right? So right off the bat, draw your lines on your chart. Okay, there's a line right there. You've got a high, you've got a low, you got a higher high. They cannot take that out if they're going to continue heading up. Now, can they wick it? Yes. and they probably will wick it. Okay, so what I do always is draw lines on my chart, mid-band, and even across this little swing right here, because this was actually a little thrust, retrace, you know, so that's actually a little swing right there too. Now, I like my trades to get as close to mid-band as possible, okay, or even lower if I can, because your best trade when they're stair-stepping is going to be at mid-band or lower on a long and mid-band or higher on a short, okay? So what you do then is you just simply get Object Trader ready. And let's see if we can keep an eye on the lightning and see how you might want to get in this trade if you're a little bit more of a conservative trader. Okay, let's just let it play out and see what it's going to do first. I don't trade at 4 o'clock in the morning. I get up around 5. This morning I was a little bit lazy. I got up at like 5:30. Let's see what it's going to do. Would you look for a minimum criteria here? Well, Chuck, on your question, yes, you would always look for a minimum criteria trade. That's actually, you know, kind of a given on that. Okay. Now, your minimum criteria trade has to break stealth, and it has to break line 6 with a closed bar. So it looks like you're trying to do that as we speak, but not quite just yet. See how this bar's got to close? So that would be a minimum criteria trade right there. Okay. Now, the way you would do on a minimum criteria trade, though, is you want, seeing it's even going lower. So if you were to actually box this in, like for a minimum criteria trade, you would simply do this, put it at line 6, and see this is going lower definitely, right? Definitely going lower. And it just bounced off the predictor. Let's see. Let's do it more conservative, though, because I want to teach lightning tonight. Okay, could you actually use the power meter as your lightning? See how that power meter is red right there? If this was to decide to go up on lightning, could you actually take a trade based on lightning going green? You know, lightning would go green where? Anybody? Well, right now it would be right across here, and I don't like that as much. Ooh, that's a good trade. Look at that. What do you think? Hurry. Got to make up your mind. See there? See how it bounced right off my line? Okay. Now, I just clicked that simply because it looked like to me it was going to just, it does it all the time. We see it in the room all the time. It wicks it. Okay. The power meter, Michael, on your question, let me show you. Let's just kill this trade. Let's do it on a PM only. Power meter will turn green once you get a low, a high, and a higher low. Okay. Now this could turn out to have to take out this little swing, unfortunately. Let's see what it does here. Let's see what it does. Okay, there's a little thrust. We need a retrace. See, it hadn't changed green yet. There's your retrace. Now, right now, if it breaks this little swing right here, that would be a higher low. I mean, a higher, if we get a higher low, that is, if it breaks this swing, that would change to green right there. Now, like I said, I still like this trade right here, so I would box it. But let's teach lightning tonight, though. Now, keep in mind that if you saw this trade, you'd already be in it. Okay, I drew the lines ahead of time, and you definitely would be in this trade. Okay, now, what you can also do if you're a little bit more of a conservative trader, you've got to do like, say, a wedge to give an example. Draw a little trend line across there. And see, it's already breaking it right there. So more than likely, I would go ahead and obviously hit the trigger because it's too late now. See that? See how that actually broke that trend line? I didn't have it set up and everything in time. But notice how, if you look at lightning, did you see lightning change over here too when it started stair-stepping up? Now, this is an example of why lightning can be more of a breakout trade, because see, you have a low here, You have a high here and you have a higher low here. Okay, but you don't know this is a higher low until it takes out that swing. And to me, that's a little late getting in that trade. Okay, so if I was doing this trade now, okay, what I would want it to have to do, it would have to come down here and touch 74. And the reason for that is because it's already broken out and we missed it. Okay, you want to see if we can get it? We'll see if we can get the trade. Chuck was saying like a minimum criteria trade. Let's see if we can get a minimum criteria trade. Maybe we will. We'll find out. Minimum criteria trade. Let's see if we can get one. Almost to the top. Not quite. Now, if it came down right on top of this line right here, I would probably grab it, at least one of them, because that's where my support is. And we are retracement traders. So if it touches that line right there, I would go ahead and do one. Because anytime they thrust up above a swing, they're going to check that swing. More than likely. I mean, it's about I'd say probably about a good 85% chance that they're going to check that swing right there. Because they broke out and they haven't checked it yet. Okay? Notice they checked this one. Okay? They even checked this one where we drew our line, you know, right across here even. See this little preponderance of candles right here? They checked it even. So what they're going to try to do is they're going to try to check right there at that swing. Would you take a minimum criteria with a lower high? Mindy, on your question, I would take a minimum criteria trade, yes. And keep in mind that your minimum criteria trade, you would already be in it because you're looking for line 6. Okay? Now, if this doesn't go ahead and take out that top, you'd have to be careful with it. I'm saying that more than likely it'll hit this line I've got drawn because I see this all the time, continually, where they'll thrust up and they'll pull right back. You know, for instance, if you box this in, let's say you boxed it in, you know, like Charles and I teach all the time. Have you ever noticed that they'll thrust out of the box, they'll give you 6 or 7 ticks, and then they'll come right back and check the top of the box? That's because people are already taking coin on this trade that's set up here instead of this trade that's set up here. Okay? But what I'm teaching basically tonight, though, is the lightning. Okay? So we're going to look at probably a little bit more conservative trades with lightning simply because of the fact that, you know, lightning is a little breakout trade. Okay, so let's see. If we get a red lightning, a red power meter, we could go ahead and turn on our PM if this goes red. Otherwise, it won't even fire it because if it's green, it will not fire the trade. Wow, I've got this thing going too slow. See if we can get a... Now see there, it's coming right down to where I want it. See there? Could you buy that right there? I probably would. But notice that your lightning, wow, that meter stayed green, didn't it? So see, that's where you cannot take a power meter type trade because it never turned red. Okay? And you got to be careful with that because guess what? If you miss this trade, then you got to wait for it to pull back again. And you got to draw on your chart. You got to draw on your chart. And you got to see where it's going to come to. And you can actually buy it. See how it just came down to where I drew my line? That's where I figured it would do it. Okay? So what you're looking at anytime that you're trading lightning, you're looking at these thrust retrace. And if you need to look at your black chart instead, be sure and do it. But you can tell right where, here, let's just do lightning 1 right here. Let's see if we can get it. Yeah, there we go. All right, notice how basically you were heading down a little bit. Now, if you draw your line right across here, what did they actually do when they pulled back? See there? They came right on top of that line. Okay? And that's what they continually do is they check levels. Now, we're not going to look at P&L as much as we're going to look at the actual trades. Okay. Now, if you missed a trade, where do you think the next trade is on the chart? You've got to draw your lightning. Okay, you've been here. You haven't been here. You haven't been here. And you haven't been here. Okay, so let's see if it'll thrust up and pull back and test that. Now, with Lightning 1, notice that you have a low, you have a high, you have a higher low, and you have a higher high. Okay, so to keep going up on Lightning 1, they can't break that swing right there. See that? Now, it doesn't mean they won't, but they can't if they're going to continue up on the minor trend. Okay, so what we're looking for is a little pullback into a support area, like so. Let me get this one out of the way. All right, let's see if we can get a little pullback into support. Watch your lightning. And let's see if we can get a pullback. Now we got to pull back into here instead, and also looking to the left to trade the right. Right across here, and even a little swing right across here. Like so. So if that came into that little sweet spot right in there, I would take that trade because I've diagnosed my chart. See if it comes in. Everybody see what I'm doing here? Basically what I'm doing is I'm looking at all three of my lightnings, but I'm looking at my minor lightning as long as minor lightning holds. Because minor lightning is actually, as long as minor lightning holds, you're heading up more. Okay? Matter of fact, I think I'll try to prove it to you. I'll just do 3 and I'll do like 10 ticks. We'll just try for $300. See if it comes down right on top of my swing, like so. What do you think? Anybody? Got to make the decision quick. Too late. We'll do it again. I'm going to take it. Came right down on top of my lightning. All right. I've got 3 on, and let's see if we can get 10 ticks. There's my other swing right there. Testing a little bit lower right at my swing that hadn't checked yet. Let's see if we can get 10 ticks. And 10 ticks would be $300 on oil, so that would be a pretty decent little trade. Put our stop right underneath there. Everybody see how we draw on these charts in the room so that you can get some of these trades like this? Because none of us are actually trading this time. We don't have the room open or anything. That's pretty good. Let's just kill it. Is it going to take out the top? You don't know. There it did. Got yourself a $300 trade. Okay? By the way, on the real oil chart that's going on right now, does anybody notice that it kind of topped out there at 32 and didn't take out 35? So you'd have to start being careful because that could be a lower high. I'll show that in just a little bit. I'm going to go ahead and close it so I can actually keep an eye on this. That's like literally a $370 trade, so it's good enough. Okay? All right, so with what I've taught so far, let's see. Mandy, Gary, on the trade you just took, it scared me because it never made it in the mid-band gold. Well, keep in mind, though, that what I'm trying to teach tonight is lightning 1 through 3, not 4 so much because 4 is huge. Okay? Trying to teach just strictly the minor lightnings. Okay? All right, now let's do it more based on lightning back to the upside if this happens to decide to give us a little retrace. Right now, we already got a trade. Let's see if we can get another one. All right, let's look to the left to trade the right. Let's see if we can. Already missed that one, I think. Okay, we're gonna wait for it to do. See, you did a double top. Let's see if it'll stair step for us. Okay, let's draw on our chart. Where is it going? It checked there. See it? Little swing. It has not checked there. So I'm going to draw mid-band. Like so. So there's a lightning 3 swing and there's a lightning 3 swing right there. Okay. Now, if it comes down in this area right here, we're going to see if we can get 10 ticks. See if we can get 10 ticks. Just 10 ticks. Okay, where would our stop be if we happen to get a trade here, like at this line or this line right here? Well, you have a high, you have a low, you have like a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, like in your little bars. So you've got pretty good support right here, right? Right here at my line. Predictor is telling you that it's coming down a little bit lower. See it? Predictor's saying right down here, like so. So this will be a little sweet spot to me. Predictor's saying right in that area right there. Let's see if we can get 10 ticks. All I care about is 10. What do you think? Just missed it. Let's see if it'll get in our box. So you gotta be quick at these, otherwise you just literally miss it. See how I drew that ahead of time? That's the beauty of being able to draw on your charts and see where these trades are. Let's see, how come this is the one you said could be a short? On which one, Mindy? There's no short yet until we actually get taking out lightning 3. Okay, now they are taking out lightning 3 so far right here. See it right here? So let's just diagnose this chart. If they took out lightning 3 right across here, all right, let's just see what it, if it thrusts down and retraces back to that, see how it just did? Could that actually be a little short? Yes. But see, you got to wait for the retrace, and that went a little bit too fast. Now, does anybody remember on crude oil this morning where this little trade was called? Now, we weren't open just yet right here, but I'm going to show you how I diagnosed this. All right, let's go ahead and speed it up, and we're going to go to the time of the room opening. Just let this thing go. All right, this is 7:51 in the morning. You got to make a decision. What are you going to do? All right, let's get rid of our lightning 1 because it's pretty noisy. And we'll get rid of lightning 2. We'll look at our swing on lightning 3. I'll draw a line. They've already tested it. Look to the left to trade the right. Can't go any lower than here. Okay? And we have not had a phantom. Does anybody see a little trade on this chart as we speak that's happening? So could you be ready to take this trade if, for instance, it comes down, tests support, and bounces back up through resistance? Does anybody remember this trade in the room this morning? This was actually a phantom trade, and I called it. Now, where would you want to take that trade? Anybody? What do you think? What says the team? What do you think on here? If it closes above this line right here, I'd probably take it, because I called that trade in the room this morning. And if it closes above that line, could you actually take a trade? We know here's support. We know this is a phantom. First time in after a trend change, by the way, which first time in after a trend change is usually a very, very good trade. All right. And let's just see how good of a trade it was. All right. Closes above line 1. I'm going to take 1. You can just turn on your bar close. You could even turn on your auto bar close if you wanted to. It's a phantom trade. Now, is this actually a deep probe trade, or is it a trend change? Anybody? Well, it could have been a trend change. It absolutely could. But when did it start stair-stepping back up? Could you box it in if that was the case? You know, because this little trade was set up in the room this morning and turned out to be a very, very good trade. Okay, you thought it was a trend change, Mindy? Well, looking to the left to trade the right, it wasn't a trend change yet. You have a high, you have a low, you have a higher high on your Lightning 3. Okay, so it would have to take this out to be a trend change. Because remember what we were looking at a few minutes ago? Lightning 3. Okay, Lightning 3 would have to take out that swing. Now, obviously, it's already short on Lightning 2, no question about it. Okay. This little bar close feature is pretty cool. See, there's 1, there's 2, there's 3, and there you go. See how quickly, and by the way, that trade was called live in the room this morning, just absolutely right there. Anybody remember that? Also keep in mind at the open of the market is a very, very good time to get some very, very good trades. Okay? Now, if you're going to trade more like Lightning 2 or even Lightning 1, I'd go Lightning 2. I don't think I'd trade Lightning 1. Okay? But remember, when this was actually doing its thing this morning, and you look at your Lightning, when does this actually break? Anybody see you have a high, you have a low, you have a lower high, you have a lower low, lower high. So when this broke right here, remember we actually had our stop here, but we didn't get short. Could you have actually been short when it broke that? Because of boxing in like we teach all the time. Right? Just exactly the way we teach it. We do have a feature on Object Trader called reverse at if you want to ever use it. Now keep in mind on reversible type trades you got to be careful. Okay, but this is clearly doing a high, a low, low here, and even a lower high here. So, you know, it was screaming to go down. We didn't get it right here this morning. We got it at a little different spot than that. I'm going to show you how to watch for a trade on a pullback if you miss the initial breakout. Okay, let's go ahead and close it. We don't care. Let's watch Lightning. Oh, crap, I don't want that. Be sure and turn your auto feature off. There we go. All right, let's fast forward this and let's see if this actually does do a trend change. All right, there's your trend change, right? So your mid-band changed. So what are we looking for? Anybody on a trade, you're looking for shorts, right? Auto's still on, but I turned off that, so it's still off. All right. Does anybody remember this little trade also that was called in the room? Because you actually did get a quick little popper on a long trade. Let me show you how to do it because I called it. What you got to do is you got to wait for it to do a thrust, a little pullback, and another thrust so that you can get a trend line drawn, right? That's the way I've taught it. All right, so let's see if we can get. I'll show you another little feature that I think you'll like too on Object Trader. Okay, now, is that clearly a downtrend now? Yes. Okay. You even step down with your mid-band and everything, but could you actually also see that you could draw a trend line across here just in case they decide to take this up a little bit more? Because we use these trend lines all the time in trading, like so. I'm going to show you another little tool that you can use too. Show you another little tool that you can use too. Anybody use stealth when you're actually taking this kind of a trade? Let me show you what actually happened on CL. This little trade actually did fire, see, above the little trend line. But you were still fairly risky on that until it started stair-stepping up. Okay. Remember where I called it, though? Anybody? I said box it in. Okay, at mid-band. So if you weren't in this trade already, does anybody see a box that you could actually do? You got a region right here. You set it. Look to the left to trade the right. You see resistance right across here. So if it actually breaks that, couldn't that actually head up? And that's the way I actually said to box it in the room. But also Chuck asked, could it be a phantom trade? And remember, anytime you change mid-bands, backgrounds, that yes, this was definitely a phantom trade also. Okay, because what would it take to change the trend on this one? Anybody? Looking at Lightning 3, you would have to take out that swing right there. Okay, everybody sees that? So in other words, if this was to head up for real, it would have to break our mid-band and head up like we're looking for, but it would also have to take this out and start heading up. So what we teach in our webinars all the time, at least I do in mine, I don't think Charles likes phantom trades quite as well as I do. And with phantom trades, you do have to be careful because they can be total trend changes. Because we got this long this morning. Anybody remember that? This little trade turned out to be actually a pretty good little 10 ticker trade. Anybody remember it? And see, it got $300. Okay. But what is this trade that's setting up right before us right now? That just hit line 7. This is actually a phantom trade. Okay. Phantom trade, see how you got a power meter green right here? Could you actually turn on power meter? And if you get a high, a low, and a lower high, or even if it takes out this swing right across here, it would actually fire the trade. Okay, see how lightning works? Mindy, did I just answer your question? Do you wait until PM1 red for... You can, but keep in mind that's almost too late. That trade to me set up right there on that bar. On that kissing line 7 and rolling over. Okay, but that's an aggressive trade. So if you're not quite as aggressive on it, yes, you could definitely wait for power meter to change, or you could even turn on stealth. Okay, now stealth is actually a pretty good little tool, but keep in mind stealth isn't going to get you in as quick as power meter will. Okay, now power meter, if you get a high here and a low here, see how it's trying to give you a higher low than over here? So if it breaks that line, it would fire the trade. You want to see if it did it? What's the little power meter? If it turns red, it'll fire the trade. And it would do it right under that swing right there. See your high, your low. Matter of fact, right now it would be when it closes below that line right there. But it's got to close. See there? And usually, again, it's a little breakout trade. Look to the left to trade the right. You got a little swing down there at the bottom. You got another swing right across here. And you could ride your runner. Okay? So how many of you are taking these phantom trades when they're called out in the room? I mean, if you box them, to give an example, if you box this, you'd be boxing it exactly the way we teach the lightning to begin with. This would have been your box right here, like so, with lightning on that bar. What is stealth? Jai, on your question, stealth is actually, I'll show it to you. You don't even have a stealth yet. That's sniper stealth. Stealth is actually already red, so it's not going to fire it unless it breaks stealth. Now, if it breaks stealth and gets a second stealth, it will fire it. But it's not necessarily going to do that. Because when you fire stealth, is you actually do it when it turns red. Okay? Now, usually what I do in this case, see, that's not even closing above stealth right there. So that stealth is still red. Okay? Now, what I normally do if I want to add to something like this, I just turn on power meter. Or I use a trend line or something like that. See, if this goes red, it'll add 3 contracts, but I've got mine set to a total of 4, so it won't go above 4. How many of you are really used to really studying on your charts, and you can definitely tell all 3 of your trends? All 3 of your trends on your charts. Several of you? Most of you? Okay. Okay. Not yet. That's not a problem, because that's what these webinars are for. Notice how you got like a little double bottom here, so you'd have to be careful with this trade, right? But now you've got a little breakdown. You can bring your stop just right above lightning. Okay. Now, if it happens to touch lightning exit on close, we'd probably get out of the trade, right? Is that an identified swing yet? Anybody? Well, it is now for sure. By the way, you can use stealth as a stop. You can use line 2 as a stop. You can even use bars as a stop. You know, for instance, if these bars start closing upward, you could just simply turn on power meter. Now, if you get there's your higher, and if it breaks that, it would be, see, your power meter just went green. Everybody see that? Pretty cool. Does anybody remember, if you weren't even in this trade this morning, what trade is setting up right as we speak right now? Because Charles and I called this in the room this morning. It's a predictor trade, and it is also a minimum criteria trade. Anybody remember that? Minimum criteria trade. Everybody knows what minimum criteria is, right? You're looking at, on a short, you're looking at line 2 and stealth. You want to close above, and it just barely did. There's no question about that. That was about as minimum criteria as it gets, but I called it out in the room this morning because it was actually a predictor trade. And that turned out to be a monster trade too. Okay, so real quick, let's see if anybody can figure out where the next trade is on this chart. All right, and I also want to know where a trend change would be if it happens to trend change at all. Because you should be in the habit of already drawing on your charts. Okay. If this happens to get any kind of a swing like a lightning 3, you could draw you a trend line, right? Let's see if we get a lightning 3 at all. Do a little rollover trade. Another rollover. Starting to get higher lows, isn't it? There we go. Is that a lightning 3 swing right there? I know Raymond actually sent me from his chart that he had traded this morning. Is that a gutsy trade, by the way, to the upside? I usually move mine just a little bit just to make sure they don't wick me in, because they can wick you in if you're not careful. But does everybody see that that could actually be literally a trend change if it breaks that little swing, that little trend line right there? And what also would tell you it's a trend change? I was asking everybody to tell me when a trend change happens. So let's see if we can figure it out. Remember what the rule is? You got a low, you have a high, you have a higher low, you have a higher high. So right now, so far, you've got a high, a low, and a higher high. Okay, so let's draw lightning 3. See if we can draw lightning 3. It may not draw it just yet. Okay, it's drawing it right there. All right, so if this breaks this, would this be a trend change? Anybody? Because you got to make your decision fairly quick. Remember our rule of thumb? It has to do what? You have to get a higher low. That's identifying that one right there. See it breaking that? That's what we're looking for when they start trend changing. So you have a low, you have a high, you have higher lows. See how it's even higher over here than here? Could that actually be a trade that you would actually take as a trader? I'm pretty sure we called that in the room this morning. Now, why would you just take that with boxing it in at mid-band? Well, yeah, that is a phantom right there. You're absolutely right. Is it going to be a phantom that actually pans out? Well, if you shorted line 6, it already has. But we're long above this swing, so we'd put our stop just right about where that swing is, just in case. Okay? And by the way, this turned out to be, I'm pretty sure, a full-fledged trend change because we actually called that in the room this morning. See there? Now, does everybody see how you can see this just based on just exactly what I'm teaching here? That's lightning 3. The moment this thing breaks, this right across here. Now, I know this line isn't drawn real good, but you can clearly see if I drew a line straight across there, that when that broke that swing right there, that's heading up. Everybody see that? And we used a smaller lightning to get, instead of like a breakout trade, right? We get pretty much like, well, thrust, retrace, would have probably gotten it right through here, so it would have been somewhere in here even when it broke this little swing. See the low, the high, higher low breaks, and off you go. But if you're looking strictly at lightning 3 even, this actually broke this right here, just like this one did here. Okay, now don't fall for just every little, like low, high, higher low than here, higher high, so you just go, wow, the second it breaks that, I'm going to go ahead and take it. Okay, because what if this would have broken and then rolled over? But lightning 3 is pretty good because lightning 3 is looking at 15 swing strength. It's looking at all these bars and it's figuring out, you know, where's my lightning 3 swing, and that new indicator is going to let you know when this swing is actually being tested so that you can get some of these trades early, because this trade's set up right here, just like that. Let's see, Philip, is one bar up or down taking it out on a close? Well, if you box it, keep in mind the way I would box this trade, and I call this in the room all the time. Let's say that you didn't see this, but I was boxing in the room. So we know we have a low, we have a high, and we have a higher low, right? You know, we can clearly see their higher lows. Okay, so if you box it, what I personally like to do is I like to let it get out of that box, put my stop just right under that bar right there, and then if it pops on up, I protect my coin pretty quick. Make sure that, you know, for instance, like maybe it just this bar right here, and just let it do its thing. Okay, but I don't like it if I get in this trade. Let's say that I get in on this box like so, and then immediately that bar rolls over. I'll get out of it in a heartbeat because I don't like a trade that's not going to go my way. Okay, and that one turned out to go your way quite handsomely. Okay, I don't think I did enough recording of data to actually let you see the trade, you know, that said, wow, I got out of that trade a little bit too early. It took out the top, but I was teaching, so it's okay. Did you notice that oil took out 35? But don't feel sorry for me because I got $380 on that trade with just 2 contracts. So it was a good little 19 ticker trade. Okay, let's see. When it pulls back into stealth, how do you know to hold it? Well, Mindy, on your question, the problem with the way these markets act is they don't always give you these minimum criteria trades. Okay, but they do give you what I call kiss trades. To give an example, if you saw this thrust, retrace, thrust, did it come back here and kiss this? And it probably did within about a tick or so. See there? So a lot of times I will go ahead. If I had missed this trade, I would probably grab it when it even touched stealth and took off again. Okay, but you got to be careful with that because that is not a minimum criteria trade. But when did we get a minimum criteria trade on this? Let's see when it did it. We don't care about this trade except just to show when it pulls back enough to get in the trade. Minimum criteria. See, sometimes you'll miss a heck of a trade if you're not careful. There's a little pullback right there. And the predictor could have gotten a 10 ticker. See, that was a minimum criteria trade right in through here when it came. This is your money band right here. So, for instance, if you took this trade, you got 10 ticks. Okay, now, where would this change trend directions if it broke? Anybody? If it broke, it's not breaking it yet. There's another little line. Let's just kill this for a second. Let's draw our line. Okay, that's our lightning 3 right there. If it was to break that, would it be changing trends? Hadn't broken it. Went up to the top. There's another trade right there, by the way. Predictor trade. Monster. Look at that puppy. See how I draw on your charts? Look at that. Came right down to my line within a tick. Came right down to my line within a tick. Is that a phantom trade? It already did. Oh, it's starting to break. Look at that. Now, even though this trend changed right here, okay, if you were getting ready to box this in at mid-band, to give an example, do you box it both directions, anybody? For instance, I can see right now that you basically got a trend line that they're breaking without even drawing it. See it right here? That looks to me like they're going to take it back up. So could you box this if it took out that little swing? Took out the swing, so I'm boxing it. Why did I do that? Because it took out this trend line for one thing. All it did was basically you had a high over here, a low here, and a high here. And when they break these lightning 3 type swings, but still your overall trend is like major up. See there? Major up. A lot of times they'll just break these a little bit and you can draw trend lines on your charts. Does everybody see a little bit more clearly how to see lightning on your charts now? What do you think? Will you actually be able to draw it and do it? Because that trade that I was talking about right there, that's basically the trade that I took a little while ago by boxing it in. I don't know if I got any. No, I've got mine paused. I didn't have enough data. But let's just look at it real quick, and I want to show you how to see that trade in real time, because I did take it, and I'm going to disconnect market replay, and I'm going to go ahead and put on some data here real quick. Bear with it just a second. Let's see, when you box it, you were taking long only here. Well, Michael, on your question, what you really want to do is you want to, pretty much stick with the overall trend. Okay. Like, could you have shorted this when it took out this swing right here? You did get 10 ticks. No question about that. But see, when it thrust, retrace, and thrust down and it broke that trend line, that's a pretty good area to actually box in and take. You could actually take this trade long here when it took out resistance. You could take this trade long here when it took out mid-band. Okay. And this is the actual data right now. Notice that right now, and I mentioned while we were opening the room and everything that I was shooting for 35. Okay. But since I was teaching and everything, the moment it got close and then pulled back, that one bar right there, and then went back up. Okay. What I normally do is turn on my bar close down after you get a bar down. That way, if you get a bar up, you're still in it. But I went ahead and just turned it off with bar closed down. So I got out on that bar right there. Mainly because it was a good trade to begin with. And, with teaching and everything, I wasn't for sure it was going to take this out. They don't always. Okay. Now, does anybody see that you can draw on this chart right now already a trend line? Isn't that a trend line? Thrust, retrace, thrust. If this gets broken somehow, in the near future, like tomorrow morning or overnight, could this possibly be a little boxed area, where it'll bounce again or where it'll crater it and take it out? Okay. Where would this particular chart that we're looking at right now change trends? Anybody? Well, you don't have a lightning 3 yet, but I'll venture to say that the lightning 3 will show up right here as soon as this figures out where lightning 3 is. Because remember, lightning 3 has to have, you can't have these huge thrusts like this because lightning 3 could be, it could be way up here before it ever figures it out. But the more you go choppy sideways, the quicker it does figure it out. See here, you have a high, you have a low. This high, notice that that's a lightning 3 and that's a lightning 3. That's because of all these bars. But notice over here, this doesn't have all these bars. It went pretty much like straight up, and it's still heading up right now. Okay, so if you were looking at this chart right now, and let's say that you didn't go ahead and take your coin, all right, you're still in it. Well, you'd want to put your stop under lightning or turn on power meter. Okay, because right now, your identified swing is right there at 24. Everybody see that? But what if you get a little thrust down, a little retrace, and you get a lower high? Where would your swing be then? It'd be here. See, because, for instance, if see this high, the low, the lower high. Now, it's not doing this, but I'm showing you what you could watch for in real time if it does do it. If it took out that swing, that would take you out of the trade right there. See, because it would close below that swing. Okay? You wouldn't have to wait for this one to be taken out. You could just wait for it to simply start stair-stepping on the right-hand side of the chart. That's what this will look for. Or if it happens to not see it over here, it'll definitely take you out when it takes this out. Because this is definitely a high, a low, higher high. So if they take out that low, that will turn red. But it can also turn red if you get a high, a low, a lower high, and a lower low. So it could easily take it out right there too. Okay? Lightning 1, 2, and 3 is absolutely critical to your success. Now let me show you why I called that trade on ES this morning. I got an ES chart somewhere. There we go. We got an ES chart. Anybody remember ES this morning? Now let me ask you a quick question. This was the open of the market right here. Okay. Now, remember, Charles had mentioned if it come up to mid-band and rolled over, he would short it. Okay. Now, if it had gone to mid-band and rolled over, so would I. But I called the trade right down here because I looked to the left. I've got a high, I've got a low, I've got a higher high. So I drew a line. I knew that if it didn't take out that line, we were not heading down. Unless we hit like resistance up here and rolled over or something like that. But what trade is this right here? Anybody? This is a phantom trade. When would this trade actually trigger the Lightning 1? Well, right now you can draw it and you'll see it. Let me just see if I can draw it. Everybody see it? So you have a low, you have a high, you have a lower low. So if this was to change directions, what would you need over here? You need a low, see your low, your high, your higher low. It would trigger it on that bar right there even. Or if you waited to it take out this even. And that turned out to be a monster trade at the open, by the way. A monster trade. And we drew this at the open. Now keep in mind the open at 8:30, we're not really looking as much to get in right here. Okay, that's 8:30. This was where this was boxed, was right here. So what did you have? You had a low, a high, a higher low, and it started breaking up. And you were starting to get higher highs and everything. When did this start breaking back down? Have a high, you have a low, you have a higher high. They break this right here, they're starting to break down. And see what they do? They'll thrust below it, and they'll kiss it, and then it rolled over. Now this is really hard to short, in my personal opinion. Although in hindsight, you can clearly see you could have done it real easily. Okay, but that to me is very difficult to short because you're thinking, hey, this thing's going to the moon. But when did it break Lightning 1 or 2? It broke it when it took out this 1050 and down it went. Okay. Now, drawing on your chart, where do you think this thing actually changed directions? Because I had some people that traded this earlier today and actually nailed this trade, and I want to show it to you. Okay. First off, when you get a thrust down and a retrace, okay, on like ES, what are you looking for? Let's say when you're trading your mid-band, to give an example, okay, does everybody box in their trade? You box in your trade? Okay, because let me see if we can figure out where we can get in a trade. Y'all want to? Because I'm running a little bit low of time, so we'll go ahead and do it anyway. Y'all want to see if we can figure one out in real time? Well, we already missed one. So let's see if we can get another one. See this one right here, predictor? All right, we missed that one. There's another predictor. Just missed that one. Everybody see that? All right, let's see if we can get a higher low. Getting a little higher lows. Took out the low. Here we go, yellow bar probe. Is this a trade setup right here, yes or no? And how would you know to box this? Let's just watch it, one bar at a time. Let's see, we got a bar up, a bar down. So you can box it right now, right? So I'm boxing it. Not in the trade yet. Look to the left, trade the right. There's support right there. I'm in. See my little box? Okay. Could you also, though, have taken this trade on a trend line break? See there? Trend line break 2. And down she went. All right, where would you stop on this trade? Anybody? I mean, you're just simply trading this just like we teach every single day. So where would you stop on this trade by what I just taught all hour? All right, we've got a low, a high, a lower low. So if it takes out that line, I'd be out of that trade. kissed it, so we're still in it. Low, high, higher low. If you're a gutsy, get out early type trader, if it breaks that line, you're breaking Lightning 1. What do you think? Are you out yet? Could you be out of that trade? If you're watching Lightning, you could be. See there? Yeah, I would too, Michael. Yeah, because see, the thing is, for one thing, it only took out that low by a little bit to begin with. And where was Lightning doing? It was stair-stepping down, stair-stepping down, stair-stepping down, stair-stepping down, stair-stepping which direction when it took that out? Stair-stepping back up. Could that be another trade that you took right there? Absolutely it could, but you already missed it. You would have taken it right here. Bar up, bar down, box it, you're in the trade. Came right down to our line. You're still in the trade. You're going to be out of the trade if it takes out the swing. Out. See it? Right across there. Low, high, higher low, lower high, higher low again though, and it took out the swing. So could you be out of that trade? Yes or no? Yep. That's why I don't do mid bands. Okay? Now, could you have actually gotten in the long trade on this little puppy based on a trend line? What do you think? Anybody? Let me draw it for you and I'll show it to you. And we're almost through because we are running out of time now. Let me kill everything on the chart, get rid of Lightning. All right. Anybody see Lightning 3, Lightning 3, Lightning 3? Could you have actually boxed this in at mid-band when it took out that trend line? Took out that swing right across there. You could box it like that even, or you could just simply box it above. You know, but if you box it above, you got to put your stop. You know, you can't just, you know, if that got you in and you can't hold some of the heat. I don't personally like that. I like to get a 10 tick. If it comes back in the box, I'll take it off. Okay. But I might go ahead and get into it again too. Let's see why some L3 is bigger than others. It's confusing. Bigger. Oh, you're talking about Jai on your question, and that's a very good question, and I'll answer that before we wrap. That is actually Lightning 4. You're talking about the dot right here being bigger? Yeah, that's Lightning 4. Let me show you what that does. See, Lightning 3 is looking at a 4 range bar, 15 swing strength. Okay? This is actually looking at a 12 range bar, 5 swing strength. So when you get these dual numbers here, that's actually a 12 range chart also that tagged that number there. Okay, this is a 4 range 15 strength, and this is a 4 range 15 strength and a 12 range 5 strength. So if you drew your Lightning 4, to give an example, see if you got double numbers, you can draw Lightning 4. Let me just draw it for you. Backspace, hold it in. There's your Lightning 4. Okay, now I don't trade Lightning 4, but you can clearly see though that basically what it does, see like right here, you have a high, low, lower high, box it in, breaks. See how that didn't take out that high there, box it in, you know, on your phantom type trade. That's all that is. If you see double numbers, that's a 12 range chart. I don't pay any attention to Lightning 4 except just seeing it with my eyes. I watch the swings. You know, for instance, would you know if you were looking at Lightning 3, let's just look at Lightning 3, not Lightning 4. Let's just draw Lightning 3. Because I don't want this to be confusing at all. All right. If you drew on your chart, and let's say you missed this trade here, but you draw your line on your chart, that's your high, low, lower high. You know that's a lower high because it took out this low right here. Okay, so if that doesn't take that out and you come to phantom, can you box that for a short? And the answer is yes, because you're getting a lower high. Okay. And you're always looking for these trades. Mid-band, try to get 10 ticks. If it comes back against you, get out, go for a phantom trade, get you, monster move, however you trade it. And does anybody see that you could more than likely also continue drawing your trend lines on your chart, and you'll see where these things change over and over and over. Can you see a trend line here, for instance? See the trend line? And by the way, that's where we are right now on ES. But does everybody see if you missed this trade, you still got this trade right at mid-band? You got this trade right at minimum criteria. You got this trade right at minimum criteria. You got this trade right at minimum criteria. And you got, let's see, this one might affect you though. That is a minimum criteria trade though. So usually, for instance, if in hindsight, you can only look at what really happened. So, if it broke out of the box and came back in the box, I'd be out of it pretty quick. But you did have a nice mid-band trade. You could easily do a trend line, get in a trade real easily, right? But see how that broke that trend line? No longer heading down, because what were we getting? A high, a low, lower high, lower low. When did this start changing trends? You got a lightning 3 here and a lightning 3 here. When it started breaking these, and look how it perfectly broke it and kissed it. See there? Just like I taught earlier. So could you actually have been ready to take this trade right in here in this little sweet spot because it took out lightning 3? Yes. Okay, always watch for these trend lines, because, when you get a trend line break, these markets don't stay static. They move around a lot. Look at this since we opened. I called a long trade here. We got taken out of our long trade up here at line 6. We didn't short it at the time, remember? But we did call this one and got that short. Beautiful type of trade. Went down pretty nicely. But look how many trades there have been on this. You had a long here, you had shorts, and then you had long again. And drawing on your chart, and keep in mind, if you want to use like that little true trend, you can actually use your trend line and you don't see any of this except, the way you want to see it. Just draw your trend lines on your chart. A lot of our people do that, because sometimes you got to kind of take your eyes away from what's going on with the colors and everything, because when they break trend lines, they're heading back up. When they break trend lines, they're heading back up. Yeah, that's the thing, Mindy. The colors are beautiful, because where you want to watch them is when you start stair stepping. Okay, but when it breaks trend lines and things, those are really good areas to look for good, trend change type trades. Because what's ES been in literally all day since midnight? Pretty much a big range. See it? There was your low. They tagged it at 907. They tagged it again, and they took off. Okay? So draw your trend lines on your charts. Teach yourself to really see lightning. For instance, if you were short on this chart or long on this chart right now, I'd have my stop right there, because that's a high, that's a low, that's a higher high. That is an identified swing. What if it pops up and pulls back, makes a higher low, and pops up again? Then bring your stop up. Just follow those lightnings. And you'll be amazed at how much you'll be able to make if you just stay with lightning. When does lightning change? Well, right here on this particular chart, it changes when it takes that out. But could it also change if it takes this out? That's not a very good trend line. But anyway, you can clearly see if it was to break that trend line, could it actually be changing directions? Probably take out that low, start getting lower highs, and then start heading down. It could easily do it. And that's why we draw trend lines. Okay, I hope this helped everyone. While we were all trading earlier, like I said, I went ahead and took that oil trade, and turned out to be a very, very nice trade. I just left some on the table, but I called 35 out in real time, and it's now at 31. So I got out at a really good spot. Okay, and I do that based on drawing on my charts. Okay. And keep in mind tomorrow morning when we've already been diagnosing charts, you know, I'll call that trade right at that open. And if we've got higher lows, you know, like we did this morning on that ES chart right here, we did not take a short trade. We took a long trade. Remember? And it was a monster. Okay, thanks again, everybody, for coming. Hope you enjoyed it. By the way, Charles didn't upload his webinar from Saturday yet, so I haven't posted it yet. And I've Skyped him, and I haven't gotten an answer. But I will get it as soon as he acknowledges my Skype and gets that thing posted. Okay? And I'll get mine up for sure after we close this out. Thanks, everyone. Across the sea, you're great at being able to see the lightnings. You mentioned 15 swing strength. How can I interpret that without drawing the lightning line so I can see the lightning? Well, you have to draw the line. The more it goes sideways, the better you get these swings closer. And when they start getting closer, they're usually looking for those breakouts to begin with. You know, especially like breaking trend lines and things, boxing them in. You know, could this have been a short from line 7? Absolutely. See it? But it was also a long. Okay, thanks again. We'll see everybody tomorrow morning. And I think we nailed 100% on our trade calls this morning. I don't remember a single one I missed. All right, thanks, everyone.